Hello, hello, hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
How are
How
you?
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty darn good.
Thanks for willing to do this.
Sure. Hear that plane flying over?
Yeah.
Oh boy. Sucks living so close to the airport.
Yeah, no problem.
Oh well. All right. Are we rolling?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Sorry, just having a snack of some delicious Cheez Its.
no problem. So I could just jump around then with roles in your career.
Sure. Yeah.
So the first thing I did think it was cool that prior to voiceover that when you were working in radio you got to uh meet Charlton Heston in a way.
Well, over the phone, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was cool, and I stayed up all night because it was a late night talk show out of Utah, actually, that I was able to hear in South Dakota, and he was the guest, and I wanted to call in and talk to him. And he said that I asked him if being a radio DJ would help my career as an actor. He said, "Oh yeah, of course. And I wish would have had the wherewithal to actually record it at the time, but I didn't have any way to do that because it was a long time ago. But it was pretty cool talking to Charlton Heston, and I realized that years later he was doing those autograph shows, and I could have had the opportunity to actually shake his hand and meet him in person. But I was out of town or something that week, and I missed that show. But yeah, it would have been nice to actually physically meet him. But it was nice talking to him on the phone anyway. So that was great.
Was that also shortly after that you got to meet Adam West too?
Met him in 1980, so it was considerably many years later.
Okay.
Because the Charlton Heston thing, I think, was in about 1975 or six. Well, I hadn't actually been in radio until 1976. So, yeah, it would have been 76 or 77. So, yeah, 3 years later, I met Adam West, and we were friends for 37 years. So, and we all miss him. And there he is, right back there.
Mm-hmm. Has there been a case, or maybe early on, where you did get really starstruck with who you were meeting, or do you not really get starstruck?
No, I used to. Yeah, I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, but you realize that you have to kind of play it cool.
Yeah.
And they kind of seem to, like that you're not too nervous or whatever.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's just real forthcoming with Adam. He was on my radio show, and I said, "Got any advice for a, you know, up and coming actor?" And he's took my question very seriously. And even though I was, a radio DJ at some small radio station in South Dakota, he took my question very seriously and never poo pooed it. And years later when I lived out here and we worked on Family Guy, he was always real proud of the. I knew Wally when he was in a small village in South Dakota. I helped his career. Yeah, so he was fantastic. So we
Mhm.
we love Adam.
And then when you did, so then moving ahead, when you did get to LA, your first professional VO job was on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, there was a video game for LucasArts, and then first network TV job was on Fresh Prince of Bel Air as a lottery announcer, which I thought was cool. I
Mhm.
went in and recorded 3 or 4 takes of it earlier in the day, and then they just played it on tape later when they did the taping. And I'd done some sitcom stuff later where I actually showed up on the set as they were doing the sitcom
Mhm.
and did it live off stage with a microphone. But in that case, they pre-recorded it, which was convenient. I was in and out within literally 20 minutes.
Mhm. Well, I did think it was interesting that with the Fresh Prince credit, but you didn't get into SAG until Murphy Brown.
Well, Fresh Prince was AFTRA,
Okay.
the American Federation of Radio TV Artists, which is AFTRA. Anything that's recorded on tape
Yeah.
was under the auspices of AFTRA. Anything that was recorded on film, Murphy Brown, motion pictures, that's Screen Actors Guild. They've merged now, so basically anything that's done at all is under the auspices of one union. Um, so yeah, that was. But I had worked in radio for so long under an AFTRA contract that I was what's called SAG eligible.
Yeah.
They had kind of a partnership agreement with AFTRA that if you had been working under an AFTRA contract for a certain amount of time, you'd be SAG eligible, and you could just basically walk in and pay your initiation fee, and you were an immediate member. So that was kind of a cool thing. Having worked in radio for so long, under an after contract, I was SAG eligible. So when I got the Murphy Brown job, I had to join. It was a must join, and what they call a must join. So $2,600 later, I was a member and never looked back. So it was pretty cool. Yeah.
And do you still have any aspiration to pursue live action?
No, on camera?
Yeah.
Nah, none whatsoever. For a while, when I first moved out here in '87, that's what I moved out here to do, was be an on-camera actor, and I quickly fell out of love with it because there's such a lack of imagination amongst the casting people who cast on camera. They, when you walk in, they basically make the decision right away, even just looking at you, whether or not you're right for the character or not. And it's like, well, you haven't even heard me act yet. You haven't even heard me do the scene. But they've pretty much made the judgment right away. I'm like, this is not really for me.
Mm-hmm.
So a friend suggested voiceover. Like, oh, this is for me. This is what I really like, because you can be hundreds of characters every day, and you can be a talking squirrel and a trash can and a bicycle pump, and you can voice a old man, and all these different characters. But on camera, you were kind of put into a category where it's like, oh well, he's not really ready for the part. But you haven't even seen me act yet. Come on, give it a chance. So yeah, I quickly fell out of love with it, and then toyed around with it again later. And I'll do things for friends for their movies and stuff, and projects that kind of interest me. But I'm not really addicted to the camera at all. So I'm like, no, I'm happy being behind a microphone. And in about 2019, I was interested in pursuing that again, and then the world melted down, and on the other side of it, I was like, I'm not interested again. So it comes and goes. I doubt I'll ever be interested in the on-camera world again. It's just, it's not my world.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did you become involved working on the Return of the Living Dead sequel?
It just answered an ad. There was a radio show that played comedy called the Dr. Demento Show. Now he's online, but he used to have syndicated radio stations, but he would do it out of KMET here in Los Angeles. And he had played a lot of my songs that I had sent him on tape, parody songs, when I was back in the Midwest. So when I moved out here, he invited me up to see the show. So I went up to KMET in Hollywood, and I was looking around the green room, setting my stuff down. There was a little bulletin up on the bulletin board. So we're looking for zombies for a new zombie movie and sequel to Return of the Living Dead, and send in a Polaroid of your face. And so I'm like, okay. So I did, and they contacted me, and I did 3 or 4 days on that movie, and I can, it was a background extra. I didn't have any lines or anything other than just, So, but I can definitely see me in the movie. I know exactly, because the headpiece that I was wearing was so distinct that it's easy to kind of pick it out.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good time. Yeah. And I had at the time, it was '87, Thriller was still kind of the big thing with Michael Jackson. And I had one of those Thriller jackets, and something told me, just wear it to the set that day. So I wore it to the set, and as I walked onto the set, I saw eyes peering at me through one of the makeup trailers. And a guy came over and said, hey, excuse me, I'm such and such, such and such. Hey, can we borrow your jacket? We're doing a Michael Jackson zombie parody today, and we didn't have the jacket, and you just walked on the set with the jacket. I'm like, well, you're not going to destroy it, are you? It's like, no, we'll cover it with like liquid glass, so if there's any sparks or anything, it won't. I'm like, okay. I'm almost kind of wishing they would have destroyed it, because it would have added to the authenticity now as a movie collectible.
Yeah.
But at the time, I didn't want to have my jacket ruined. So they said, oh, okay, well, you can, when we have lunch, you can sit at the table with the main cast and the director. That was my payoff for that. If I'd had my wits about me, I'd have said, yeah, $500. I'll rent it to you for $500. But I was just so happy to be at the main table. I didn't even think about, hey, they will probably pay me for that kind of thing. Because, if you're on camera and you happen to wear some of your own wardrobe, there's called a wardrobe bump, where they give you money for wearing your own clothes. So I never even thought about that. But hey, you learn. I was so green.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally a month after I had moved out here. So I was just happy to be on a set and be a zombie. It was pretty great, but it was cold, freezing cold. I was like, man, this is not really glamorous. It's freezing.
Well, seeing some of your early headshots too, did you ever have any aspiration to sing at that time? Because you totally had the Bon Jovi Cinderella.
Well, I've been a singer ever since I was a kid, but I
Okay.
do all kinds of styles. And at that time, I just thought that leather and big hair was kind of the thing to do because there was still the '80s.
Hmm.
So I said, yeah, well, whatever. And then later I changed the style and grew it out and just combed it. But yeah, that was kind of the look at the time. So yeah, I would sing from time to time, but again, much like on camera, I tried it. Tried singing in a band with a bunch of guys, and they had, we would rehearse, and I'd have all these crazy ideas that would want to do to promote the band, and then after rehearsal, I'd want to talk to them about how the band is going to move forward, and they just want to smoke pot and hang out.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not really for me. So see ya. Um, and then other times everybody, when you're in a band, it's like six people, five or six people, and they all have vastly different opinions about where to go with it. So I was like, this isn't really me. So I became a session singer when I moved out here. I started into voiceover where you just sing other people's stuff and you show up and you sing for a couple hours and they cut you a check and off you go. There's no politics, there's no committee, there's no nothing you got to deal with. There's no touring, there's no roadies. And it's like, this is a much better life for me. I don't want to play that whole game. But yeah, and then I realized that I could sing in a bunch of different styles: opera, country, you know, metal,
Mhm.
pop, a bunch of different ways. So I'm like, yeah, that's probably session singing is probably much more to my liking because I can come in and give them this kind of sound they want and collect my check and off I go.
Mhm. Well, it does. I know there's a little article on your website where it looks like for a while, you had a persona, like called something McGuire.
Oh, Butch McGuire, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there was based on that whole '80s thing, I had come up with a TV pilot called "Living on a Prayer," and we had created this fake '80s cover band called Mullet Inc. And we did a little half hour. I think the half hour is still up on my website if you just look for "Living on a Prayer," and it's still up there. And it was fun. It was a little ahead of its time because at that time the '80s weren't quite back in popular culture. They were still kind of hanging on to the '70s a little bit because everything's in 20-year cycles. So the '70s were popular in the '90s, and the '80s are supposed to be popular in the early aughts, and they were kind of hanging on to the '70s a little longer than the '80s are all the rage now,
Yeah.
but I don't have much interest in doing that anymore. But it was fun to put together. I mean, it was fun to write and fun to film and fun to do all those scenes with all those crazy people. It still makes me laugh today. So some of the scenes in there. There's a Carmine Appice. He's a world famous drummer. He did a scene at the end that was really quite funny.
Mhm.
So yeah, but sometimes you get these ideas. You just got to get them out of your head. You got to film them, edit them, do the soundtrack, and then release it, and off you go.
Mhm.
So just to kind of get it out of your skull. Oh, there's another plane flying over. All right. Anyway, can you hear that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I got all the windows open. It's a beautiful day here. Now,
Okay.
where are you at?
I'm outside of Minneapolis.
Oh, Minneapolis. Oh,
Yeah.
how did I know that? Wow, I just happened to have my Twinkies cap on today. Very strange.
Have you been
Are they
up
do?
here?
Are they doing well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, they are so far. Good.
Mhm.
Well, I'm from South Dakota, so I'd seen many Twins games
Yeah.
early '70s. Back at the old Met Stadium. But yeah, I know the area well. So
Mhm. Also, moving on to animation. Guess one of your first really early credits was the Three Little Pigs movie.
yeah, it was a French movie that was all in French, but they wanted to dub it into English. So it was really kind of my first foray into, of course, animation, but also dubbing, where you're kind of limited by what has already been drawn and animated. So it was kind of a learning process to, wait for the beeps, put your voice inside whatever the lip flaps are. And it was very interesting. And, it was a little teeny tiny job, but when that came out on VHS, folks, wow, those were the days. I bought like 10 copies and passed them out to everybody because I was pretty proud. And they even named one of the pigs after me. Now, they actually named my character Wally the Pig,
Oh,
so I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah.
And one of the few times, been several times where they've actually named the characters after me.
Mhm.
I think they wanted to name it in Sonic Boom. They wanted to name the walrus Wally Walrus, but I said Walter Lantz already did that. It's already Wally Walrus, so they called him Willy Walrus.
Oh,
But there was when I did Astro Boy, they called one of the characters Wally Kisagari.
yep.
So it's kind of funny because it sounds like a cartoon name,
Mhm.
Wally. So anyway, yeah, Wally the Pig, and there was singing and there was all kinds of stuff. So it was fun, like 3-4 days of going in there and dubbing that, and that was magical. You know, it's like, ooh, I'm in a cartoon. Here, watch this.
Yeah.
There's just never, fails to thrill me seeing my, a voice that I did coming out of an animated character. Just as a kid, it would have thrilled me, and it still thrills me today. So I probably will never ever get sick of that thrill. So
Yeah.
it's pretty great.
And
I like it.
yeah. Well, I know that there's been like countless instances too where you've gotten to perform with yourself.
Yeah, right. Where I actually get to, talk to myself. The Garfield show being one of those instances where, Al the dog catcher is talking to John Arbuckle. It's like, hey, have you seen my dog? Odie? Yeah, we have him in the back of the truck. Will you have Odie in the back of the truck? Yeah, you can't have him. We're going to take him to the pound. But I don't want him to go to the pound. He's going to the pound. That kind of thing. So it's kind of fun. It's funny. Mark Evanier, who produced that, said that Frank Welker is like the only guy he knows that can overlap himself when he's talking to
Yeah.
himself as different characters. It's pretty funny. So anyway, yeah, that's that. But that's always fun to do,
Mhm.
where you're actually talking to yourself. And I kind of learned how to do that when I was imitating Beavis and Butthead,
Oh,
because I do like the Butthead pass, because Beavis and Butthead was all the rage, so everybody kind of was doing their impression of Beavis and Butthead, and then they go back and then put the Beavis stuff in, and pretty much the way Mike Judge would do it. It's like, hey Beavis, check her out. Yeah. So in that little spot where he's laughing, Beavis would go, yeah, she's hot, and Butthead goes, yeah. So just kind of fun to kind of talk to yourself, because that's basically what I do in my home all the time. I sit around and talk to myself. I
Mhm.
talk to my dog, talk to my cat. Here's my cat right here. Not sure if he's going to make an appearance or not. So yeah, talking to yourself is pretty fun to do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it might be hard to pick a single instance, but what do you think is the case where you've had to alter your voice the most significantly for a role?
probably one of the early. I don't do a lot of vocally stressful stuff anymore because I've got so many regular clients now that wouldn't like it if I had laryngitis.
Yeah.
Because some of those jobs, they call them blood throat jobs, to where you're really shredding your vocal cords. Um, I did Beetlejuice on stage for about 4 years at Universal Studios, and that voice is kind of hard on your throat anyway. But to do it 5 shows a day, 3-4 days a week, I'd leave Universal hoarse every day, and I was thinking, maybe this might not be the thing to do. So, but my voice ended up being fine, so thank God. But it was, probably Beetlejuice at Universal Studios. If you're doing a cartoon and you're doing a rough voice, you're doing it maybe 2, 3, 4 hours in a cartoon session. But for Beetlejuice, you're live on stage. Then you get carried away and you're projecting over the music and you're talking to people and laughing, and you forget, hey, I'm really stressing my voice here. At the end of the day, you're like, okay, see you tomorrow, maybe. But it always seemed to come back the next day. But one of the advantages being much younger when I was doing that, so it was a little more flexible probably than it might be today. But who knows? You never know.
Well, and talking about playing iconic characters like that, I know you've gotten to do Austin Powers a lot in different aspects too.
Yeah, well, when I saw Austin Powers in 1997, I was one of 4 people in the theater,
Yeah.
and it had just been released, and I saw the trailer and I said, this looks hilarious, because I love good parody, a good satire, and of course he was doing a parody of the old show called The Avengers from Great Britain, and of course James Bond, and I said I love satire and parody. So I took my friend Sunny at the time, and she didn't, I don't think, even laughed once. And I was laughing all the way through it. And I was the only person in the theater laughing. And I said, this is going to be big. She's like, you're joking. This is going nowhere. I said, no, this is going to be big. You just wait. And during its initial run, it didn't do very good business. But when it came out on videotape, and laserdisc, and on cable, then it got like, it was called a sleeper, basically. Then it started getting a following. And they were doing midnight showings of Austin Powers here. And I had dressed up for him one Halloween because I thought it was really cool. And I said, I could probably make some money out of doing this as this movie gets, bigger and bigger. So I had costumes made and wigs made and things, and got to do Marilyn Manson's birthday party one year. That was pretty fun. And I would do all sorts of events and industrial events for Maybelline, and they'd fly me to Florida and put me up in this resort, just to go to Austin Powers for a couple hours at a party. And then I'd, sing a few songs like Satisfaction and, different things, 60 songs. So it was pretty fun, but exhausting, after 3-4 hours of that, because the energy is, so heightened. Hello, baby, very groovy. And you're always like moving. Yeah, darling, very shagadelic. And I had, the teeth made by the guy who actually made the real teeth for Mike Myers. His name is Gary Archer. I met him at a makeup show. And I said, I want you to make my Austin Powers teeth, too. So he did, and they're, pretty much exactly like Mike Myers. So it's pretty great. So I wanted to do it, deluxe. So that doing that live character work is really something that helps to hone your ability as an actor, because you're not just reading something off a script. You're actually improvising with people on the spot, and people will throw you all kinds of questions and stuff that you're not rehearsed for. And, how you respond to that in character is really, the true measure of an artist. If they can, they always say that if you're going to do a classic character, like voice a classic character, like Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse, everybody can do 1 or 2 lines as Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse, but can you converse as Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse? Can you sing as Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse? Can you improvise as Bugs Bunny and stay in character? So that's the true nature of somebody who really has embodied that character, is if you can, improvise and sing and just kind of have a whole rounded view of what that character is all about, as opposed to, I can sound like Scooby-Doo for, 3 lines. And after that, man, I don't really sound like Scooby-Doo. But, yeah, that's why the people who, do those voices well, because they really understand those characters and have a full grasp of all the aspects of their vocal necessities.
Well, still speaking of Austin Powers, I think just for me personally, my favorite Family Guy credit of yours is when you played the little glasses in the Lauren Conrad episode.
Where Brian had glasses on to make him look smarter, but they were like toy Austin Powers glasses to talk. Yeah. Well, I think that Seth and everybody knew that at the time I was kind of going out as Austin Powers and doing that stuff, and they'd see my pictures when I'd come into the session, like, well, Wally can do Austin Powers, and bring him in. So, yeah, I would always love a new Austin Powers movie, but I'm just not sure the current climate in entertainment is probably accepting of it. I just don't know if that kind of humor could really play anymore. So, you never know. Just never know. Who knows? Things could change, and we could be back to shagadelic swinging, man. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Family Guy, with how long you have been part of the series, is there a favorite experience you've had working on it?
Anytime Adam West would come in, and just getting to see him as we're going in, he's coming out of the studio, I'm going in, or whatever. Really the favorite times on Family Guy was when Seth was not directing, but when he was actually just one of the actors.
Yeah.
Because once he became the director, he was now on the other side of the glass. And I was like, oh, hi in there. But when he was in with the actors, it was Seth Green and me and Seth MacFarlane and Patrick Bristow, and we're doing a bunch of singing trees, and we're all singing Cats in the Cradle together. And that was fun, because we're all in a semicircle. And, talking about, talking to yourself, I mean, Seth MacFarlane is one of the best at that, because he can be Brian talking to Stewie, then Peter, then Stewie, then Quagmire, then Peter, then Stewie, then Brian, then Peter, and he just like a bunch of switches, and it's pretty remarkable to watch. But then as the show went on and he became more popular and started actually directing, it would mostly be just the actors going in one at a time and just doing whatever their line is, and then they'd put the other actor with it later.
Mhm.
Plus, as they went on, they started using a lot more celebrities, and the celebrities' schedules are a little tighter. So we weren't able to do those ensemble reads that we used to be able to do. But that's probably one of my favorite memories. And doing the voices of Kiss.
Yeah.
I laid down all the voices of Kiss initially, and I thought, well, this is going to be great because I'm all four members of Kiss. And then they actually got Gene and Paul to come in and do their thing. So you still hear me as Peter Criss,
Yeah.
I think, doing the Chattanooga Choo Choo song with Seth as Ace Frehley. But it's pretty fun. So I went to one of Seth's parties and had a Family Guy poster that I'd gotten, and I had all the crew and everybody sign it, and I've got it up on my wall. And one of the sound engineers, his inscription reads, "Your Kiss voices still ring in my head." I guess they all thought it was pretty funny because, it's Gene Simmons. Hello, I'm Gene Simmons. And Paul Stanley. Hi, it's Paul Stanley. That's Ace Frehley. He's got that New York thing. And Peter Criss, he's got the raspy. Beth, I hear you calling, and I can't come home right now. So it's just, so again, while Kiss was all talking to each other, and it was just me going from Peter to Paul to Ace to Gene. So that was a good memory too. So yeah, that show in its day was, there was nothing funnier.
Mhm. So moving back to the topic of dubbing, do you remember what your first anime role was?
Boy, was it Transformers Robots in Disguise, or was it something earlier than that? Boy, I'm not really sure. Was it Power Rangers? It might have been Power Rangers. I can't really
Okay.
remember. Yeah, it might have been Power Rangers when I was the Blue Psycho Ranger. Well, the first dubbing job would have been the Three Little Pigs, because that
Right.
technically was dubbing, yeah. But as far as, iconic shows, it's probably Power Rangers, I would imagine, because I gave the Psycho Ranger the Beetlejuice laugh, so I was still kind of just coming off of that Beetlejuice thing. So I'm like, yeah, I can do the Beetlejuice laugh for this, and it'll sound pretty scary.
Mhm.
So, but I think, yeah, Three Little Pigs would have probably been the very first one, followed by probably Power Rangers.
Well, I know that Digimon was around the same time as Power Rangers too.
I don't know if I've ever been on Digimon. Have I?
Yeah,
Was
you
I on?
played. Yeah, you played a Bancho Leomon.
Was that Digimon? You're right. What was the one where I played? It was a photographer. Well, you probably would know, but he was. But they wanted him to sound like Austin Powers, but he was
Oh,
like a photographer taking a photo. So I came in and did that. Mary Elizabeth McGlynn directed that one. I remember that. I said, "Well, what do you want for this guy? Just do Austin Powers." I'm like, "Cool, fine, I get it." But yeah, Bancho Leomon and don't tell me there was the other character. Bancho Leomon. Okay, go ahead and tell me.
Hydrogryphomon.
Yes, Hypogryphomon. Yep,
Yeah.
I remember that. Yep. Oh boy, they all start to blur after a while. You're like, well, what is that again?
Mhm.
Especially the one from 20 some odd years ago. It's wow.
Mhm.
So as you can hear, the airport's very busy today. LAX is flying right over my house today. They must have changed the flight patterns or something because it's a little foggy here, but strange. Anyway, so sorry about all the airplanes, but
Oh no,
anyway,
it's fine.
part of life in
Well,
Hollywood.
well, so then how did you when you got Brago and Zatch Bell, were you basing it off the Japanese?
No, I was doing Clint Eastwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. At first, I thought he looked like a member of Kiss, and I thought maybe it might be kind of funny to do a Kiss, but they seem to like the uh, the Clint Eastwood. What's his human's name?
Sherry.
Sherry. Sherry, I think it's time to move. You know, let's go. Cast the spell. So
Yeah.
it's very, very Clint Eastwood. So they just said, man, because you throw them a bunch of different options, for this stuff, and then the director decides, oh, that's a good one. When Jeff Nimoy was doing Tokyo Pig, There was a bunch of, I would do my regular characters, but then there was these incidental characters, like it's the guy at the train station calling for a train, so we'd put in celebrity voices. Like
Hmm.
he let me do Adam West and Don Adams, and it was really kind of funny. And we'd laugh and we'd entertain ourselves to no end. But people watching the show was like, wow, that the guy calling for the train sounded like Adam West. Kyo Takamine, telephone call. Kyo Takamine, telephone call. That's pretty fun, and we'd laugh and think it was very funny.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, then you got to play a number of cool villains in Blood Plus.
yeah, that was actually a fun. That was very fun, because it was vampire and it was the whole thing. And at first I was the dad to one of the characters, but then they cast me as like the big guy.
Yeah.
And Nathan, as I remember, I had to play like a really flamboyant gay guy. And they said, just follow what the Japanese is doing for that one. It's like, okay. So I listened to him. Okay, that's what he's doing. That's what I'm going to do. Um, and I can't remember what the name of the was it Barry or what was the lead guy's name? Anyway, that was pretty fun. But yeah, another one of those Studiopolis shows that when it's done, you're kind of like, yeah, that was a nice 52 episode job. That was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
Well written, very well written shows.
Yeah. Well, for me, one of my favorite roles that instilled your voice in my head when I was a kid was Hakubi in Kekkaishi.
Oh yeah, right. Was that the dog, the kind of
Yeah.
ghost dog? Yeah. Oh. Well, Sherry, what was her name? Honey. He called her Honey.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, here's the deal, honey, as I remember, if memory serves. But yeah, the kind of the ghost dog. We would have a figure of that, I think, in my like a plushie of that in my cabinet upstairs. But we always called him Exposition Dog because whenever something needed to be explained in the story to keep the story moving, he'd always come in and explain. Well, here's the deal. Here's what's going on. So we're like, all right, here's more exposition, dog, and it'd be 3 or 4 paragraphs of him just describing what's going on in the story. So yeah, yeah, right, yeah, and he had like no legs. He just had like a tail that kind of trailed off like a ghost. Yeah, it
Yep.
was pretty cool. Yeah, but he always called her Honey.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that. Yep.
That was Laura Bailey, who was your
Laura Bailey. Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. That's the problem with anime is you record by yourself.
right.
And you never see anybody else, and except you're leaving and they're coming in, but you're never really sure what character they're doing. They're just, hey, what's up? Yuri and I worked on Tiger and Bunny now 2 seasons,
Yeah.
and we never saw each other. It's weird. We'll email each other, but I haven't literally, shaken his hand in probably many years.
Hmm.
It's just, one of those weird things about that's that's the only bad thing really about anime is that you just don't see anybody else. And I miss the old days of ensemble records where you'd go in and you'd all gather around the food table at the studio and have some pineapple and some bagels and chat and see how the kids are. And then you go in and you get your scripts and you highlight your lines and you do a couple runs and laugh. And then you do another run where you go off the page and you improv a little bit and then you laugh
Hmm.
some more. And then the director has to yell at you and tell you to concentrate and get back on track, which happened more than once in Garfield. But it was, yeah, I miss those ensemble read days. I hope they come back.
Hmm.
Maybe they will someday.
Well, in terms of anime characters too, do you which aspects of Renji do you think that you can personally relate the most to?
Well, you can't see it because I have a cap on, but I have a complete forehead full of tattoos. So we have that in common. No, I'm kidding, man. Virtually nothing.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I wouldn't want to ever have lunch with a guy. Uh, he's kind of an ass. Uh, he started off as kind of a cool bad guy, like, oh, this guy's serious business, and then, several episodes in, then he turned into comedy relief, and he was slurping noodles and tripping over himself and doing all sorts of dopey stuff. I'm like, wow, this guy went from, hero to zero in no time. You know, he looked pretty cool there. He was kicking everybody's asses and bleeding and all over the place. And now he's, you know, wearing a T-shirt that says red pineapple on it or something. It's, you know, remember that it says red pineapple because his hair looked like a red pineapple. So yeah, I'm not sure why they decided to go that way with him, but yeah, no, not really anything in common with that guy. I have other characters I have far more in common with than certainly Ranji, but you know, Ranji's cool,
Mhm.
but yeah, I wouldn't want to hang out with him per
Well,
se.
with how long you've been playing him, do you remember what the darkest headspace you had to go for his character arc was?
Yeah, worrying if the check was going to show up in time to pay my electric bill.
Yeah.
That was the biggest worry with him. No, it wasn't really dark because it's anime and you just kind of know it's anime. You don't really, you know, it's anime. You know, it's a real specific style, obviously, of animation. So you don't get too wrapped up into it. But you know, voice actors can't really be method actors. You can't really get too involved in it because you do this character now for 3 lines, and oh, guess what? You're off to a dog catcher or
Mhm.
a street sweeper or some other guy. So you can't really dwell on any one character because you have to be so many people within the course of the day. That's the difference between on camera and voice acting. Voice acting is, you know, on camera you disappear into the character for 3 months and you never come out until, you know, the rap party, and they're like, oh hey, it's me. Oh hi, you are. Fool, I just worked with you for 3 months. No, that was my character. But this is me, the actor. Come on, get over yourself. Method acting, don't get me started. I think it's for very weakly talented people I don't know, who don't have a command. Be Seth MacFarlane. Be able to turn those characters on and off in a flash, in the blink of an eye. That's real talent, according to me. Now,
Okay.
I may not be right. Nobody may agree with me. They might think method acting is the greatest thing, but I have an on camera friend who's an actress that said, if I have to play a killer or a villain or some psychopath, I don't want to bring that home with me at night to my kid.
Yeah.
I want to go home and be back to me again. I'm not going to live in that for, you know, 3 or 4 months and bring that into my house. And I'm like, yeah, it's like the famous Laurence Olivier line to Dustin Hoffman, who was, you know, being all method on Marathon Man. And he's like, yeah, I stayed up all night because I wanted to be ready for the scene. And Olivier goes, my dear boy, have you tried acting?
Yeah.
Just pretend that you're that. It's amazing. And you go home and eat your tea and crumpets, and you watch the news and don't have to worry about anything. So yeah, I'm not sure about that. So voice actors really can't get too deep in anything because the next half hour of recording, you're somebody completely different, and you know you can't go to your trailer and say, I'm going to come out of that character and get into my new character. Give me about a half an hour to do that process. Nah, you gotta pull a Seth MacFarlane, hit a switch, and there it is. You know. So that's just my opinion. People who study acting theory may have a completely different opinion of the whole thing, but as far as my experience, yeah, no room for method acting in voice acting, I don't think. But that's just me.
Well, even with how if you're playing a really demented or sadist character, do you always find something to personally relate to?
No, because I'm a pretty fun-loving guy. You know, there's voice qualities that you can put into these characters that you relate to some like people you know. Like for example, the Riddler is a combination of two people. It's a hybrid. Um, One is Michael Dunn's character, Dr. Lovelace, on the old Wild Wild West series, because he was the villain and he was saying such mean things he was going to do, but he said it with such joviality and he was just loving the fact that, you know, he was going to boil James West in a vat of oil or something. And he's like, Mr. West, I'm going to boil you in a vat of acid. It'll be marvelous. As opposed to, I'm going to boil you in a vat of acid. You know, not being scary because he enjoys his work so much. I'm like, yeah, the Riddler would enjoy his work. Sometimes he turns dark. But, and then the other aspect is a theater director that I used to work with in the Midwest who had a very slow, deliberate way of talking and thought that, you know, chewing on his words and just was under the impression that every word that escaped his lips was golden and had to be
Mm.
heard. So I thought, yeah, the Riddler would probably take a little time because when he bloviates, he probably thinks that what he's saying is the most important. bit of verbiage ever spoken into the ether. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to take those two qualities and throw that together. I think it'd be kind of funny. So yeah, you don't really get too much into a headspace about too much of this stuff because you have a director in one ear and they direct you on pretty much every line, especially in the video game stuff, because they have to tell you what the context of the scene is, because in video games there's not one linear, as you well know, storyline. Things can bounce around depending on what the player does. So each line really has to have some sort of context given to you by the voice director, otherwise you have no idea what you're even talking about. And in the case of the Riddler, sometimes you have to stop down and actually look words up in the script because I don't know how to pronounce this word. I don't know what it even means. Okay, well, let's, contact Dr. Google and see if we can find out what it means. Oh, okay, that's what it means. All right. And usually a lot of this stuff, you're saying these really dark things, but then when you're done, we're all laughing at some stupid thing that happened. I belched or had a stomach sound, or the engineer, passed gas or something. You just never know what. But it's all fun. So it never gets too dark in the voiceover world. It's all fun and games.
Well, speaking of video games, what was your experience doing Cervantes and Soul Calibur for a while?
Yeah, that was fun until they wanted me to do motion capture.
Oh,
Before it was just like a voiceover thing. He was a pirate, the pirate Cervantes. And then they said, "Oh, hey, great news! The next game is going to be motion capture, and we're actually going to have you in a studio in a tight, blue suit with ping pong balls all over you, and you have to, and we'll have marks on your face." And it's like, "Well, can you do that with a beard?" "Oh no, well, you'll have to shave." I'm like, "No, I ain't shaving." "Really? You don't want to?" "No, I'm not shaving." I have my look and I have my thing. And at the time, I had an agent who was pitching me for on camera commercials and stuff. And I'm like, well, I can't change my look too much because if then I have an on camera audition, then I got to go in looking different. They're like, well, what'd you do? So they they actually offered me double the money. Well, we'll pay you this much. It's not about the money. I'm sorry. I don't do motion capture. It's not really what I do. So they said, well, we'll have to recast. I'm like, all right, well, recast, that's fine, but not doing it. So, you know, you just have your limitations. You know what you are and are not comfortable with. And I was like, let's let some other kids play for a while, and you can find somebody to do that. And because when I auditioned for the role, it was voiceover only.
yeah.
I didn't know that they were going to go mocap. And there's other people who do mocap stuff brilliantly. In the case of some mocap stuff, they'll actually record the voice actor and then hire a mocap person to come in and act out and mime to the lines
Mhm.
recorded by, the voice actor. I didn't know that the voice actor and the mocap person ever had to be the same person. It's like, all right, so we're going to do a cartoon. I'm going to voice it. You want me to animate it too? Should I come in and draw the pictures too? Okay, well, sorry, that's not my bag. So and it just became something that it wasn't originally presented as, and I'm fine with that. I was like, it's not my deal, and there was no animosity on my part. I was like, well, I understand if you have to get somebody, technology changes, and if that's what you want to do, but I'm not really going to run around in a tight blue costume all day with ping pong balls all over my body, and just really not my thing. But thanks for the offer. So, oh well, whatever. But yeah, that was a fun game.
Mhm.
Couple of games actually. I think we did maybe two or three.
Yep. What about the Samurai and Dynasty Warriors games?
Oh boy, that I really don't recall.
Okay.
Dynasty Warriors. Dynasty Warriors. Do you remember what the name of the character was?
Yeah, you had more characters in Samurai Warriors, which was based in Japan. It was Mitsunari and Motochika.
Those names sound familiar. Yeah.
Okay.
Was that a game or an anime?
It's a game.
Oh, it's a game. Okay. Yeah. And plus, here's the thing was mentioning to a friend the other day. When people come up to you at a show or something, it's like, hey, I really enjoyed your work and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what? They never usually tell you what the real title of the show is or the game until it's released. And by then, nobody sends me the memo on, well, you worked on it under the working title of Steve's Magic Tree, Well, now it's called Blood on You All. And I was like, how did it go from Steve's Magic Tree to Blood on You All? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, well, whatever. So when somebody comes up and says, hey, I loved you in Blood on You All, I'm like, was I in that? Because you work on it as, and sometimes they even change character names, you know.
Mhm.
That's sometimes it's kind of hard to, you know, have a recall on some of that stuff because it's just nothing what it originally started out to be. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's what IMDb is for, I guess. And I got a cameo request for something that I got to do this weekend for a character that I've got to do some research on because, again, the name of the project when I worked on it was vastly different than what it's called now. And I think I kind of remember the character name, but I don't really remember what the voice is. So I've got to do a little YouTube research, ticka 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 ticka, and hear what my voice sounded like, so I can do that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of an amazing thing. You know, if you're an on-camera actor and you've worked 3 or 4 months on a film, you know, you kind of understand. You remember that. You'll have great recall on that. But some of this anime stuff is literally a half hour at a time, and then several weeks pass, and then you go in and do another couple hours, and several weeks pass. But interspersed with that are all these other shows you're working on.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of hard to keep track of them all after a while. So especially when you get to my age, oh boy. But yeah, they throw you a little curveball by changing the names of all that stuff. It's like, was I in that? So
Mhm.
yeah, but it's fun. But then when we have people like you to remind us of what it is, and then I only kind of remember. But yeah, whatever.
Mhm.
Like I said, that's what YouTube's for. I got to look all this stuff up.
Well, were you aware of Sailor Moon when you got cast as Yuichiro?
um, yes, was that Ray's boyfriend?
Yeah,
Yeah, what was his name again?
Yuichiro.
Oh, Yurichiro, right? Yeah, how do you say it?
Yuichiro.
Yurichiro? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. We used to call him Irichiro, and
Okay.
I would just call him Reach Around because it was easier to say Reach Around. Hey, we're doing Reach Around today. Okay, so uh, yeah, this the original Sailor Moon was done quite a while ago, but the owners wanted to re-record the voices in a more modern situation with I think better actors or something. I'm not sure why they re-recorded it, but that was originally recorded with a whole other cast like 10 or 15 years earlier, right? Am I
Yeah.
remembering that right?
It was done in Canada in the mid 90s, and they wanted to redo it because it was really heavily censored. So,
Oh, that's why.
yeah.
Oh, here all along. They lied to me. They said, no, no, they want better actors. And here you are. So they didn't want better actors. They wanted us to do different things. I get it. Okay. Not the first time I've been lied to in this industry. No, I jest. Yeah, that makes a world of sense then because they were all Canadian actors. So,
Yeah.
but I liked him. I thought he was kind of charmingly, you know, dorky, and she's always yelling at him and telling him, "Do this, do that, don't follow me around." And he was like so smitten. It's kind of funny. But you know, I've had female friends who've really been huge Sailor Moon fans, and just to have some sort of connection with that is kind of a neat thing. I mean, I've been blessed to have worked in so many great franchises.
Right.
Um, it's just like, wow, I was a talking Care Bear toy. I've been, in the Batman franchise, the Avengers franchise, the Transformers franchise, the Power Ranger franchise, the Sailor Moon franchise, the Bleach franchise. I mean, just the Tonight Show franchise. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on. It's like, good gravy, what a crazy fun life this has been. So I'm really quite blessed to have had that kind of scope of because some stuff I'm into and some stuff I'm not, but I still can appreciate the fact that it's a huge franchise and people love this, and I feel honored to be a part of it. I'm not a huge Power Ranger fan. I never really kind of got it, but to be at least part of the franchise is beyond cool.
Mhm.
Because I'll always be that, and I'll always be the Riddler in all those games, and I'll always be, Ant-Man and Yellow Jacket in the games and the TV series. So it's pretty cool. I like it.
Do you still have people who mention the Tales of series to you, the game? he played a Ramiel. He had blue hair. He was
Oh,
shirtless.
yes, Tales of Symphonia.
Yeah.
Yes, my ex-girlfriend's brother, when we started dating, she looked me up on IMDb and found out that I was him and told her brother, and he wigged out. And so I called him as Lord Remuel. And but again, I had to go to YouTube and search the voice because I was trying to make points with this cute girl, and it was kind of fun. So yeah. They actually they didn't have much of a toy line there, but I did get one of the little toys that they had made. I do have it up in my cabinet. But yeah, that was pretty cool. But again, that's a long time ago. So many years ago.
I think that we have a similar hobby too. Do you is it accurate that you also collect animation cells and production artwork?
I do.
Okay.
Let me see if I can do this without screwing up my camera. There's some Groovy Ghoulie cells from the Groovy Ghoulies from the 70s. There's another Groovy Ghoulie cell. There's some autographs. There's some cells over there. Yeah, I got a bunch of animation cells like all over the place. Let's see what's over here. There's one there that was actually made for me at Hanna-Barbera. Yeah, I've got a
Wow.
bunch upstairs that but animation cells. It's kind of not really the thing anymore. See, I knew I was going to screw this up by moving this. Oh boy, here we go. This is comedy, folks. All right, so if I did this, I think, no, that's not how that was. I knew I was going to screw this up. I knew I shouldn't have moved it. Okay, let's hope that this is, oh look, it's the old Batman TV series. Meanwhile, back in the Joker's lair. All right, there we go. All right. I promise not to do that again.
Okay.
So yeah, the animation cells, but they don't, really make cells anymore because everything's computer now. So not a lot of people even know what animation cells are anymore.
Mhm.
They're like, what are those? Well, they used to make cartoons with these folks. And I don't really I got in too late into the industry to where I don't think they actually made any cells of my characters. Um, some of the anime characters I have because they were still animating on cells in Japan, but I wasn't the original voice. But
Yeah.
by the time I got into Invader Zim and Family Guy, it was pretty much all on computer. I do have some of the pencil sketches from Family Guy, which is pretty cool. And then for my birthday one year, they did take one of the pencil sketches and they made a cell for me of Phineas
Oh.
and Barnaby, the muscle guys. There's a baby in this trash can. So they made that up, and so I have that, but it's a repro cell. I mean, it's not, they never use cells on Family Guy, but it's still kind of cool. But yeah, I love having, floating. Do you float your cells? Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Where you get the background, and then you have them underneath the mat. Put a spacer, so it's like a 3D thing because it's not laying flat against the background, but it's kind of floating. It's
Right.
great. If you see the full figure of the character, that doesn't work because they have to be in, touching the background, could be standing on the ground. But if it's just like, stomach up, then you can float it. It looks really nice.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I've got 20, 30 cells, something like that, of all from different shows, Huckleberry Hound and Space Ghost. And
Yeah.
I was really into Hanna-Barbera stuff and Filmation. Those are my two favorite studios. I have a Jungle Book. Oh, there's a Jungle Book cell right there.
Oh.
Matter of fact. Oh, there's a Charlie Brown cell right there. So there we go. All the cells are back there. That's leading upstairs to the other floor. I call that the Isle of Art. Isle of Art. Isle of Art. Get it? Isle of Art. I love art.
Mhm.
Isle of Art. Okay. Play on words. So that's where a lot of the cells are. So what cells do you have?
Oh, I've always, ever since I've been in the hobby, I've always focused on production artwork from anime only.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a Ranji pencil drawing, and I have two Dr. O'Shea cells from Astro Boy,
Okay.
which is pretty cool. But I think that's about the only anime that I have. All the rest is, American stuff.
Yeah.
But stuff that I loved when I was growing up. I love the Groovy Ghoulies. It's my favorite cartoon probably of all time.
Mhm.
Any more cells here? I don't think so. No. So yeah, cells are great. And there was a place in Culver City I used to live next to called Cell something Cell. It was called Cartoon Color, and they sold all of the paints and brushes to all the animation houses. So you'd go in and there was a book that thick of just colors, of like the palette of all the different colors. Like, give me a bottle of H7, give me a bottle of BK4, and you could do your own cells basically. You could just buy blank cells,
Yeah.
and if you could ink stuff on, you know, paint it on the back, and it's like, oh look, I have a cell. So in a couple of instances where my buddy would have a cell of like Huckleberry Hound, but with closed eyes. We'd make another cell with open eyes and paint that and lay it over it so it looked like he had open eyes, and he'd sell
Yeah.
it as like an open-eyed, Huckleberry Hound cell. So it's a lot of fun. Do you ever paint cells or do any of that stuff? Or you just collect?
Oh yeah, it'd be cool to try that, but yeah, no, I haven't tried making a fan cell yet.
Yeah, I'm not even really sure if they even probably sell animation cells anymore. You got to be able to get them somewhere. The 12 field or the 14 field or whatever size cell. But I love the little registration holes in the bottom. You get
Yeah.
the long one and then the two, and because that's what they'd put it on. And one of my friends, one of my good friends, is Ruben Procopio, who's been an animator for years and years and years for Disney and Warner, and he's happy now just to be doing it in the computer. So he
Mhm.
doesn't have to spill paint all over the place and get his fingers messy. And he sculpts in the computer now too. But he's a great sculptor as far as physically, using like the medium. And he's animated many things. Of course, he still draws it, by hand, I think, and then scans it in. And they take the drawing and then ink it in the computer and make the lines. It's a fascinating thing. When I was doing the Return of the Cape Crusaders movie for Warner, he had me come over there because he was working on that, and they had one of my scenes as the Riddler up on the thing that they were working on, and he just got the call from the legal department, not Ruben, but his friend, got the call from Warner Legal saying, well, we looked at what you've animated so far, and the Riddler looks too much like Frank Gorshin. So Legal was like a little uneasy with it looking too close. They didn't want to get sued. So he said, oh, okay. So he went on his computer screen and just basically erased the eyebrows and moved the eyebrows up and
Yeah.
moved the mouth down and changed the nose a little bit right as I was watching. I'm like, this is amazing. You could never do that if you had a pile of cells. It's like, oh my gosh, here's a pile of cells. Now we've got to throw them all out and animate them again. Nah, just in the computers and move the mouth around. Oh yeah, in my kitchen I have a bunch of cells: Captain Crunch, Frankenberry, Count Chocula, Tony the Tiger, Quisp. I have a lot of those cartoon cells from the TV commercials, uh, promoting breakfast cereal.
Mhm.
So that's another great collection of cells. Cause love Frankenberry. Yeah, animation cells. They're, when I first got into it, they were like $500-600 because they were rare. And I remember my buddy selling Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cells for $200 to $300 until they, mass released them through Toys R Us for, $19.
Yeah.
And the market for that just, because why would I get a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cell from him for $300 when I can just go down to Toys R Us? They have 100 of them there. You just, oh, look, I think I'll buy this one. So I have some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cells, and I've been to a couple Warner sales, and I have a Tiny Toons cell signed by Joe Alasky. Cam Clark has signed a Leonardo cell, and so it's pretty great. That's
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So is there anything else that's coming that you're part of that you can safely talk about?
No. Well, there's a thing out on Netflix right now that I'm kind of proud of called The Life and Films of Ersan Kuneri, Ersankuneri. It's a Turkish comedy series. I was calling it a sitcom. It's not really a sitcom, but it's done by a guy named Cem Yilmaz, who's the top stand-up comic in Turkey. And
Oh.
he has 5 bazillion followers or whatever. And he got this series through Netflix, and it's an 8-episode series. But he basically is a porno director starred the character, not Cem Yılmaz, but he created this character like Austin Powers or whatever. And this character, Ersan Kuneri, is a porno director and actor in 1981. So it's retro, and it's very funny. The costumes are great. The sets are great. But he wants to go straight. He wants to make real, legitimate films. And of course, they're not very good. Hilariously so, unintentionally so. So, but it's like what this character would do if he was trying to make legit films. But the films end up being, great satire and parody, as I mentioned before, of certain genres of filmmaking. Tearjerkers, horror films, superhero films, cop films. It's really quite funny. So I did the English voice, dubbed the English voice of Ersan Kuneri, who's the lead character. And he talked a lot. And it was 90 plus hours of dubbing. It was a big job, but they let us improvise and change some lines around. And if it was, we offered up something that was funnier, then they would say, oh, let's keep that. So it's pretty great. And I've heard from Mr. Yılmaz on Twitter, and he congratulated us all on the great job we did in English. He said that his son watched it in both Turkish and English, and his son said that the English is actually better. I was like, well, you're being kind, but thank you very much for that. But he seems like a really cool guy, and yeah, it was uproariously funny to work on. So, but it's not for the younger audience. It's very mature and irreverent and a little bit raunchy, but it's hilariously funny. So if you're on Netflix looking for something to watch, 8 episodes, all under an hour, called The Life and Films of Ersan Kuneri. And I'm not a big swearer. I'm not really big into profanity. I really never have been. But I swore more in the 6-week course of this show than I have the past 6 years of my life. But it's kind of part of the thing of what this guy's all about.
Yeah.
But it was it's a pretty funny show. Yeah. And the costumes are amazing. The sets are amazing. And the acting, all the characters are amazing actors, and they're funny and comedic. Even, when we couldn't understand a single thing they were saying, I could still kind of read the subtitles and go, yeah, this person's pretty good. There's one episode where one of the guys gets addicted. Now, remember, this is 1981, where this new thing called Atari comes out, where they got this machine in a bar, and the guy's like can't, he's getting tokens and putting them in. He's like, no, stop me! I'm concentrating. He's addicted to the Atari, which is pretty funny. So that just all this social commentary, even from a Turkish standpoint, is still pretty funny. So it was kind of a cool thing. There's some other game, Call of Duty, where I play Nordicus the Conqueror in the new Call of Duty thing with some zombies and stuff. Let's see. Yeah, the other stuff I probably can't mention at this point. So yeah, always something fun and new coming up, and a lot of new, great, talented people coming up through the ranks, and so it's going to be fun to watch. What happens with the industry as it progresses forward, and all the new talent gets in there and puts us old guys out of work, and we'll happily retire and just go do autograph shows and talk to all the fans and talk about all the fun we had on Invader Zim and Family Guy and the Garfield Show and Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes and all the other stuff. So. But I'm happy. It's at least I've had some sort of contribution in this wacky, nutty world. So, but the anime stuff, the thing I'm most proud of in anime is the Tiger and Bunny. I don't know if you've seen Tiger and Bunny or not, but that's the show that I actually have watched every episode of, because it's like this concept is really interesting to me. So again, we were allowed to kind of improvise and change some things around, and once the helmets are on, you don't really see their mouth move, so you can basically say anything when the helmets are on, because you don't have any lip flaps to accommodate. So, but yeah, I fully recommend Tiger and Bunny. Season 2, part 1 of season 2 is out on Netflix currently. We will this summer, I think, finish up the second part of season 2, and then that comes out, as I understand, later in the year. So, very proud of that. And that's about it, I think.
Okay.
Chris. Yeah, as far as what I can talk about. So,
Well, my final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
um, that I helped people, that I was a helper, that I did what I could within my means to help people do whatever. Because I got so much great help when I was growing up, and all, not just professionally, but in all aspects of life. When I was a kid in South Dakota, digging into my mom's makeup kit and making myself up into Frankenstein and, Oliver Hardy and all these other Scarecrow of, Wizard of Oz. Um, my mom didn't really complain or call me weird or put me into therapy. And my dad was always ready with his camera to take pictures of any stupid thing I was dressing up as or whatever. Um, some of the people in school weren't nearly as kind to my aspirations, but a few people, friends of mine, kind of understood. But like, why is he wearing fangs and wearing a Dracula cape in the middle of summer? It's not Halloween. So, um, yeah, it's just, my folks were never discouraging in any of the weird aspirations that I was exhibiting. Many friends were very encouraging. As I was growing up, and I said, well, I'd like to go to Hollywood someday and be an actor. And I had a drama teacher in high school who pulled me aside and knew what my aspirations were, and basically said, um, I never say this to anyone, but you've got a fire. And I never encourage anyone to actually go into the profession of acting, but you should definitely do it because you've got a fire and a drive. And I was like, wow, this is coming from a teacher who never encourages anybody to do this. You go into high school and you're like, oh, I want to be an actor. Yeah, sure, whatever. But I guess he saw something in me where I had to do this. And I've never forgotten that. And I thought that was really, really cool of him to kind of pull me aside and, basically, don't tell anyone I said this, but go for it, dude. So that's kind of cool. So I guess I just want to pay back the help and assistance that I got, you know, in my life, growing up and developing. And there's a gal I had lunch with the other day who's the wife of a studio engineer that I've worked with for years. And she, at the age of, 40 or something, decides that, she wants to get into voiceover. And she's not an actress, but she has a really nice voice. And I said, well, it's a long road. You have to be a really good actor and once you're a good actor, then go to this coach to learn how to be a voiceover. Because I think she could do pretty good. I'm not really that encouraging anymore to get into the voice acting business because it just changes almost, it seems like every other day.
Yeah.
Well, here's what they're looking for today. Well, and then next week it's like, well, they're not looking for that anymore. Here's what they want. They want you to sound like you just got out of bed and you're just reading the copy for the first time. Really? That's interesting? Okay, whatever they're into. But she has such a soothing, wonderful voice that she could be, anything from like a sassy mom to an oracle, an all-knowing, all-seeing oracle. And like, she could probably do pretty well at this. And since her husband's already in the industry, they're probably pretty well connected. So I was actually kind of encouraging to her. But I'm just trying to, help as much as possible within my limits
Mhm.
of what I'm prepared to help with. I mean, I can't help anybody balance their checkbook or invest in, for their savings or their retirement. That's just not my bag. But as far as what I've done and what I've been able to kind of do and accomplish so far in these years, if I can offer anybody any sort of wisdom or guidance, that's what I'd like to be thought of as later. He was a good guy who helped a lot of people, and that's fine. That's fine for me, I guess. It's certainly not, the collecting. Oh yeah, he's the collector of all this worthless crap, which some of it's not that worthless, but some of it is. But it makes me happy.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't need to be known as a collector or a millionaire or any of that other stuff because I don't really care about that. But just if I could help people along the way, that's what we're here for. On this planet, just help each other, enrich each other's lives, and not make each other angry and upset. So I guess that's a long answer to a short question, but I guess I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah,
Mhm.
sounds good to me. So how about you? What's your legacy? Anybody ever ask you that?
Yeah, since I've started doing interviews, I guess my main thing would be that, you know, if anybody who's around my age or younger wants to start doing this, you just have to be polite and try and figure out, kind of talk about more things that people don't, that the guests don't always talk about on a regular basis to make yourself stand out. And fortunately, I've been doing it for since July 2020, and you're my 229th. So it's worked out really well so far.
229. I'm into numbers. I wonder if that has some sort of significance in life. 229. Interesting. So, and how old are you?
24.
Okay. Yeah, when I was, you know, big into the radio thing when I was 13, 14, but of course I was playing radio in my room
Yeah.
and you know, playing records for no one, you know, but it was rehearsing, and then I finally got into radio at 16, but we didn't have a YouTube. We didn't have any sort of forum to be able to do this stuff. And I would have loved to have, you know, of course it's expensive, but you can get these little low band, you know, FM stations, you know, that will go to the end of the block.
Yeah.
You know, it's only like a couple watts, and you can, because there are people who have these Christmas displays, Christmas light displays on their house, and they program it, and they have the computer play the Christmas music, the Christmas song, broadcast it through the car radio, and you'll sit in your car and turn it on, listen to the music as the lights dance to it. That's kind of cool. But I would have loved to have had one of those little transmitters just to sign on and just like do a radio show for 2 or 3 people on the block. That would have been really great. But yeah, to have the forum that you kids now have is fantastic,
Mhm.
because now, you know, anybody can have a show or have a forum or get out there and say stuff, and you know, who knows, somebody might see it and go, wow, we need to take this kid, you know, international, and we'll put some money behind it, make it for real or whatever. So, but
Mhm.
yeah, it would have been great. I wouldn't have had to shoot my James Bond movie on Super 8, you know, film and take it to the developer and pay a bunch of my newspaper boy money and have to pay for it, and you know, and I could just shoot it on my phone, you know, and edit it together in a little handheld device and put up there, here's my James Bond movie, you know.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, it's a modern age is pretty remarkable for people who have aspirations to do this sort of thing. So good on you.
Thank you.
So keep, so 229. All right. Well, I'm going to go buy some lottery numbers, lottery tickets or something with that number, because I think it might be lucky. Who knows?
Okay.
So, well, thank you. It was a lot of fun, and good luck on all the others, 230 and beyond. So
Yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your
just let
night.
me know when this posts, and I'll blast it out on Twitter.
Okay. Oh, great. Thanks.
Cool. You got it. Thanks, Chris.
Bye.
Have fun in Minneapolis.